Rise party. Well, here is the big market story right now. It is oil, and it is taking a real tumble, dipping below $90 a barrel and touching its lowest level since August the 3rd. Now, as you can see, the rest of the market is looking pretty flat. So why don't we get straight to the oil trade with Sharon Epperson, because that, as we mentioned, is where the action is right now. Sharon?
The action certainly in the energy markets today, Mandy. You are right, and we are looking at oil prices that are now near the lows of the session. This 3 to 4% slide that we have seen both in the WTI oil market and the Brent crude market started overnight, and of course there was a great deal of negative sentiment with the China PMI data, the Eurozone PMI data, concerns about weak demand. Add to that the fact that the Asian Development Bank talked about its GDP growth forecast for 2012-2013, reduced those forecasts. So there's a great deal of concern about the demand picture, and that weak demand is also being seen here in the U.S. with the data we got out from the Energy Department showing the gasoline demand is down about 2.5% versus where it was a year ago. We're seeing gasoline futures sharply lower, and even natural gas, which had been on a tear 6 straight sessions, a huge move up there for natural gas. Natural gas is actually the biggest decliner that we have here in the energy complex. Back to you.
Sharon, thank you. Well, let us stay on oil, because oil is one of the few things in life that we love to see the price go down on. Let's bring in, though, Addison Armstrong, Director of Market Research at Tradition Energy and a CNBC contributor, and Alan Harry, Spartan Commodity Fund Portfolio Manager and CEO. Addison, we love prices when they go up, generally on things we own. Is this slide in oil the sign of bad things to come economically?
Well, I don't know if it's a sign. I think it's reflecting what has really been a preponderance of bad news from all corners of the globe. But this really is not anything new. You know, we know this. This is the fundamentals now starting to reassert themselves after sort of the enthusiasm we had for assets in the run up to QE3. Since Ben Bernanke announced his new round of stimulus on the 13th of September, we're down 11%, almost 12% on WTI since then. Other commodities are behaving the same way. It appears to me the traders just aren't buying it this time.
Well, is it because volumes, i.e. supplies, are too high, Addison, or is it because demand is falling?
Well, there is some tightness in certain areas of the world in the oil markets, particularly in Asia, due to the lower levels of Iranian exports that are making their way east. But, you know, when you look at Western Europe and just how terribly challenged the economies there are, and you look at the U.S., which is clearly oversupplied with oil and shows no sign of that changing, you know, the supply and the production figures are not at all supportive for oil prices higher. But we still have to think about what's out there in terms of Iran and, you know, investor enthusiasm for cheaper credit.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned Iran, because we're going to talk about that in just a second, but certainly the Middle Eastern tensions. I think that we're up about $20 a barrel than where we were in June, so certainly supportive. But Alan, I want to get to you on the numbers specifically, because we've broken below $90 a barrel here. To what extent was $90 both a technical and psychological barrier? Now we've broken it, it opens up to much further downside.
Well, I think it was a very big fundamental and technical number at $90. I think the reason why we got down to that $90 level is because of bad possible builds coming out from the numbers that were released at 10:30, and they were bearish. We also have bad economic data coming out from around the world, all bearish on crude oil. Well, when we broke $90, then it exasperated itself to the downside. I personally see 86 to 85 as our low for crude oil, and what I'm really looking for is to see the unleaded gas prices at the pump coming off. I haven't seen that just yet. However, unleaded gas came off considerably today.
Okay, guys, Alan, I want to hit, though, something else. Listen, we had the Benghazi attack in Libya. We've seen new violence in Egypt. Syria is a disaster. We've got now increased tension within the people of Iran. All right, the Middle East situation is not getting any better. Why aren't we seeing oil at 100? What's the risk of $125 a barrel oil?
Well, I think it's a possibility. However, if we're breaking that $90 level, it's an easy short for people to take until we break above 90. So I think as soon as it hit that 90 level, they took in that big short. If we break above, they could cover it back, maybe 92, maybe 93. We've got to break the 97, 98 level. We've tested it many times, haven't really succeeded through it, maybe to 100 at best. However, the tension in the Middle East could amount to something, but right now what's really affecting crude oil is bad economic data, oversupply in the U.S., so we've got a mix of decreased demand and increased supply.
Got it. Addison, Alan, thank you very much for your thoughts on oil. Let's talk more about the Middle East, because economic sanctions are starting to really hurt Iran. The Iranian currency, for example, is in a free fall, and now the people's anger is spilling out onto the streets. So let's get to Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and we've been watching some amazing footage of, for example, people on the street saying we're starving, a woman even climbing onto the car of Ahmadinejad.
Yeah, and there's some new video out today. As you say, the rial, the Iranian currency, has fallen 40% in 1 week. Let's show this video that we're talking about. This is from Tehran's Grand Bazaar. These are merchants in that bazaar saying, shut down your shops. They are angry because their currency has fluctuated so much, it's incredibly difficult to do business. Imagine buying inventory at one price level, and then what do you do a week later when the change is so dramatic? We believe that riot police went in, stopped this protest. There are some photos out there. We're trying to authenticate them, and at the same time have shut down long-tolerated but illegal money traders on the black market. We cannot show you a chart of the Iranian currency because the charts we have reflect the official rate, which is malarkey. Let's show you a full screen, though, of what has happened to the price of the Iranian currency over the last year. In January, $1 cost you 10,000 rials. 1 week ago, $1 cost you 24,000 rials. Yesterday, so 1 week later, 35,500 rials. Dramatic change. This obviously causes a lot of tension and problems within a country. Why is this happening? Because of sanctions. They cannot sell oil, A. They can't bring in dollars, so the supply of dollars in the country has dropped dramatically. Additionally, because of the sanctions, they can't import goods. So imported goods not only are in short supply, the money to buy them with is also problematic, so you got a double whammy on the price, so they're suffering inflation. And then if you really want to do something dumb, you do something like Ahmadinejad did yesterday. He went on national television and begged people not to exchange the currency. What does any average central banker know? When you go on television and beg people to have confidence in the currency, what does it mean? That they have no confidence in the currency.
At the end of the day, though, as far as the regime and their nuclear ambitions are concerned, do the sanctions actually really squeeze them? Is it effective, or is it really just the people on the streets that are hurting?
Well, I think it's both, right? They've been reduced to barter when it comes to trying to sell their oil and get product and rice and things into the country. Now, I think it definitely hurts the regime as well. The question is, what happens to the people on the street? Do they blame the United States and the European Union because of the sanctions, or do they blame the regime?
They're smarter. I think they're smarter than that now. I mean, that might have worked 30 years ago. I think that, you know, Iran, you look at the people there, you get a sense from the little we know, of course, right, that they want better ties with the West, but this ruling party at the top, Ahmadinejad, right, and the theocratic rulers have no interest. And they come out, and Ahmadinejad, to your point, says stupid things over and over again.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Okay. So I agree with you. I think that, generally speaking, I think there's sympathy on the ground in Iran for the West, but at the same time, they're proud of their nuclear program as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for filling us in on that, Michelle.
All right, switching gears, let's get a market flash now on a big technology name with Seema Modi.